Hi everybody, welcome back. This is oldemodave and welcome back to the channel. We're going over the final of our recent Standard Showdown High Noon League event, where thanks to Wizards of the Coast, we put on an event where the winner played off against the pro player Autumn Bichette for a massive prize box, but to get there, they had to win through this game. I'm here today with Scott. Scott's going to take us through what Orzhov Broncos and Golgari Midrange look like.
So starting with Orzhov Bronco, it's a archetypal black-white mid-range deck. It revolves around the card Caustic Bronco, which we saw from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It surrounds that with black and white interaction, and also can utilize the card Insatiable Avarice really well. That draws them cards. It can also tutor cards to the top of their library, so we might see some high mana cost things being put on top of the library to interact with Caustic Bronco. On the other side of things, we've got Black-Green Midrange, another archetypal midrange deck. Reduke fans, eat your heart out. It is good green creatures, good black creatures, black interaction, that sort of thing. That's how they win games, is they just nickel and dime you out, play cards, hope they spend more mana than you do and their cards are better than yours.
Absolutely, and both interesting decks and an interesting way to decide who goes first. I believe they just rolled a set of poker dice to see who gets the highest hand. So goes the way, I believe, of the Golgari midrange player in that outcome. And we also have a player of known fact here. We have JMF of recent. Goodness me, I say recent. This is like 2018 Magic World Cup competitor. Making you feel old, damn. And also Tom, who is rocking the gold nugget dice on the right hand side, which means that at some point they have taken bounties during this event. Those gold nugget dice, though, they absolutely are worth the gold that they're printed on. Have you seen eBay, Scott? They are actually crazy.
Yeah, unfortunately I have. I mean, I think that is a case of people unfortunately not being able to run standard events every now and then, but luckily in Firestorm in Cardiff we have a very, very good standard scene. We get 10 to 12 players on a quiet week, and on busier weeks like this one, like for this high noon event, I think we had 20 something.
Yeah, I think we were 18 plus our guests, so that was a great number. And here's a little throwback for me. Previous Abzad and Grisan player, seeing Rafine's Informant come out. Basically a looter, right? So there's a lot of cards you don't want to see in this Broncos deck off the tops, and I guess Skrell's Hive was one of those there to be able to cycle away with to like set up the big Bronco turns.
That is a Skrell Defector Might, so that's the Giver of Runes analog that we have to make do with in Standard. Steel Seraph, another. I talked about that last time I did a commentary as well. Being played on the prototype mode.
I know, being a rising solid card, it will be around with us post rotation. So I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of Steel Seraph, like a good value on rate and can be played for more. And talking about good value on rate, there's Liliana. Never a bad card to see on turn 3.
It's the typical mid-range interaction, isn't it? One person decides to play their threat out first and the other person answers it. So then more threats. And then we'll see if Tom has the removal to deal with these new ones.
Yeah, and Anointed Peacekeeper is one of these sort of awkward threats that we see. A little bit of a slow roll out of what we got in hand. Go for the throat, Caustic Bronco, and we got Tranquil Fullback and a Mosswood Dread Knight. Slightly different interactions here that this doesn't actually need to name a card that it sees here. This is an interesting sort of like Mechanica Peacekeeper that even if you didn't say, for example, see a Bronco in hand, they could have named Bronco to be able to like counter on latest the abilities and things on a later street. But I'm guessing that was what was picked by what was written on the paper. LV?
Yeah, I can't see that.
There's the comments, AMF. Which one you picked?
So I've been playing a fun little brew based around Squirming Emergence, a Reanimator card, and whenever JMF plays against me, he always has Rest in Peace on turn 2, and he always has Anointed Peacekeeper on turn 3 to name Squirming Emergence, even if I don't have it in hand.
Well, we can tell that he didn't actually have it on Caustic Bronco because he was able to play Caustic Bronco and then go for the throat, which probably suggests to me that it was actually Tranquil Fullback, which is a dangerous card, especially now both of them are up to 4 mana, because you have Tenacious Underdog coming back from the bin. Very handy to be able to pay 4, get this back, and get in there for damage. But that is, if you have some like Tranquil Fullback, like when they're in the graveyard, you're going to be able to dispose them quite nicely with playing that card on rate.
Yeah, so I think the reason why JMF named the Frillback there was to stop the graveyard being exiled on the previous turn, allowing him to blitz and kill the Liliana. So he knew that by naming the Frillback, what Tom was going to play was Bronco plus go for the throat, and that allowed him to blitz and either get the Liliana or the Bronco. Either way, good result for him.
Yeah, we are absolutely in like gamble time as well. Whilst both players figure out how our scoring goes, I appreciate that, guys, getting that right there. I was worried then as they were going, were we going to see them go down in life? But we're at a state where the Bronco can get saddled rather than just attack alone, which means anything that's flipped off the top, it's actually the opponent who's going to take damage rather than you take damage. I think that was probably you again, Scott, giving them a bit of guidance there. But that would probably suggest now that Peacekeeper is going to look to really, really try and slow this hand down. Mosswood Dread Knight's there, though. It's almost like a no-brainer to take, because otherwise that would have been 2 meaty creatures on the next turn.
So I believe I am just going to type this up and check while I am talking. So Anointed Peacekeeper can only name a card name. So, yeah, choose any card name. So it can't make the adventure side of Mosswood Dread Knight cost more, but it can make the Dread Knight themselves cost more. Correct. So Tom is still going to be able to adventure one of these, and it looks like he picked up a Preacher of the Schism as well to go with it. So, yeah, Dread Whispers can be cast. Tom can still start getting those cards in, gaining some life, losing some life even, but to play the cards. We do actually see one just played out as for 4 mana purely to saddle the Bronco. So to get in with the Bronco and the Frillback, just getting that damage in, getting some cards.
Seeing that art then, the Shadow of Mortality do you for 15 was like lurking in the pit of my stomach.
That was a Restless Cottage picked up, I believe, with all the alt arts for every single card. Doing commentary and knowing what cards are drawn is not the easiest. Like the Anointed Peacekeeper looking at 2 different arts of Mosswood Dread Knight was not the easiest to pass, but
I think I'm to blame for that, though, because I think I actually traded these to Tom, so that's actually my fault.
So you're the one to blame for the mismatched cards here.
Oh, absolutely. They were in the binder. He was looking for them, and I was a mile away from a playset, and a big fan myself of doing that. Other than my recent, this is Resurgent Amethyst, because however I could find those cards and however cheap they were, I was getting them. And how tilted that is for people.
The old border alt art Nissa is not the nicest version of that card, to be honest. So here we see a Dread Whispers here. So looks like JMF hasn't got the most action going on. All he did was just play the underdog out. Didn't even blitz it. Just on the defensive a little bit. He knows he's on the back foot here, especially having seen those 2 Dread Knights in hand for Tom. He knows he's going to be getting those cards in. Tom, on the aggressive here. Takes the trade.
It's a trade he's happy to take, though, isn't it? Because, if the Peacekeeper goes and the tax goes, which makes it a lot easier for his hand. But the Preacher is just like a good value card on rate here, and something that will hang around and be really, really difficult for JMF to deal with.
It's the name of the game for Golgari Midrange, really, isn't it? Is all of your 2 drops are resilient or generate card advantage. All of your 3 drops are resilient and generate card advantage. You see the 2 different flavors of it here, where the Anointed Peacekeeper is not generating card advantage, it's generating tempo by being a disruptive piece. Mm-hmm. And a full hardcast Steel Seraph is exactly what JMF wanted to see here. So it looks like he gave it lifelink there, as opposed to giving it flying to let it get in. So I think JMF knows that Preacher of the Schism's coming back the other way. Just wanted to get that life total and get it padded, and then hopefully Tom doesn't draw any go for the throats or anything, and JMF can ride this Steel Seraph, giving it lifelink or vigilance, whatever the case may be for the situation. In this case, probably vigilance on the next turn, because it stops that. Also, Dread Knight. Shieldred's obviously another very good card to draw here. And the Beseiju to kill it.
For one as well, because of the legend ruling on the Shieldred. So, wow, your shields have been taken down here, haven't they? And there is Black Sweepers in standard format, and JMF has the mana, but doesn't tend to be what is packed into decks really, especially main board. Needs to really put some threats down, otherwise basically they're dead on the next turn.
I believe so, yeah. So I think you often see things like Pest Control, Path of Peril to come out the sideboard of these decks. They're not really well set up for mid-range mirrors. It's not like the old days in Modern where you'd see Jund boarding in a Damnation sometimes. It's more, they know that they're a good mid-range deck and they can fight in mid-range fights and try and win that battle fairly. The issue these decks have is stuff like Convoke, where it goes underneath them, which is why you see stuff like the Pest Control and Path of Peril. Tom does pick this one up. As I said, it was Tom had the removal early game, had the threats to follow it up. Liliana was an absolute beating in this game as well, being able to sweep up, I think, 2 creatures, and it ended up discarding a card at one point. JMF felt compelled to blitz an underdog just to kill it, just to get rid of it. So it's looking slightly more favoured for the Golgari deck here. They just have that little bit more resiliency. It's which mid-range deck can go bigger, as opposed to which one has better tools to deal with other things. Like Golgari doesn't have access to Pest Control for the Convoke matchup, whereas Black-White does. So it's this juggling match whenever you're selecting a deck in Standard. There's so many available at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If you need extra tools, the best place to find them is down in the description, where you can help out the channel, buy your Magic product, Warhammer product, anything that you can, basically, from our link from our home store, Firestone Games. Lots of available there. Also, you can get tickets to come join us any Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, where we play Magic in different formats. Go check that out via the link in the description. And get some extra tools for your standard decks or your MH3 decks as they come around the corner. We're talking basically sweepers and spot removal, really, in this matchup, and trying to balance tempo versus removal. We saw Shouldered on the mid-range side. Do we see different big creatures on the Orzhov side, or is it effectively a race to the shelly, really, for both parties?
So JMF has got the advantage of having Steel Seraph here, which is obviously a very good threat if you can stick it, but on Tom's side he's got both Tranquil Throwback and Beseiju to answer it. So whereas Steel Seraph would traditionally be that very good 3-drop and very good 6-drop, it can play both roles. It's not as good here. So sometimes you see one-of cards in sideboards where it's just a huge threat just to bring in, just to break these mid-range matchups wide open. So if someone was splashing green, this is where you might splashing blue, sorry, you might see this is where someone brings in something like a Bonnie Paul or a Titan of Industry, something like that, or maybe an Aklazots out of these black decks. That's the kind of thing that these decks can sometimes play if they're expecting a lot of mid-range mirrors. I know these decks aren't the same, but they're both mid-range decks and they're both doing the same thing, just in slightly different ways.
Yeah, sure. And very much with the standard how it is, and I think it's very fair to say with the change in wind on Magic Twitter and Magic Reddit discourse, the standard is really starting to refurb itself back up as a playable format amongst the regular players. As that happens, we'll start to see a little bit more firming up of like the solid top tier archetypes. The Bronco decks, the Golgari midrange decks, all strong and powerful, but there's not really like that firm 60 card build like there is, say, for example, like the Team Analyst decks and the Boars Convoke decks. So it's just be great to see as the pros are playing more, like how a lot more refinement and a lot more like innovation is brought into these decks. And with that happening, also with rotation coming, there being a lot of space and breadth to make up new strategies with some of the, I won't call them tired, but there's some cards that we really don't want to have in a standard format anymore, right? Like your commander faces Kakazan. Like, it's time for you to go, buddy. It's time for you to get back to go into your Boros heroic standard pioneer decks and just be solid and just be there. We need to get a little bit of room to breathe in our aggro strategies and cards such as that, you know.
Well, remember that without any bannings, we would have Meat Hook Massacre, Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, and Reckoner Bankbuster all still in standard.
And Invoke Despair. Yeah.
And Invoke Despair.
So we would have seen Invoke Despair in this matchup. We would have seen Meat Hook Massacre in this matchup. So
and Bankbuster as well.
And Bankbuster in this matchup. So there has been...
And probably Fable, because they both have been playing red.
Because that is all that people did, right? And this is a very, very stacked hand. It's missing one important part, though, the third land, which I guess this was one of those, if I get a third land, I'm going to the races kind of deck, kind of hand, but what Tom's taken. But
I think Tom was hoping to be able to get in with the Bronco and hopefully get a land off it, knowing that the Bronco from JMF side, which flips another Peacekeeper, that's not too bad, can pull him ahead in terms of cards, but Tom's confident on the quality of cards in his hand that he can just kind of play his own game, try and get lands.
He got one.
A land off the top.
He got one.
It is. So now we've got options, really. We've got Liliana, we've got Frillback, and Sentinel.
Yeah, I think Sentinel's the right play here.
It bodies the Peacekeeper and the Bronco, so it probably blunts this assault. I do see getting aggressive though.
Lily, I think that was a greedy play that you make when you're 1-0 up, right? That was I think that was a situational. I'm gonna attack you as fast as you're attacking me.
Yeah, try and see if JMF stumbles here. This could end up working well if we see another.
Oh no! It's over. It's over.
So Tom is dead here.
Because what JMF is doing is he's searching his library. He's putting Shadows of Mortality on the top. He's then gonna crew the Peacekeeper, or saddle the Peacekeeper into the Bronco, and then that card is 15 life, and we're about to screw it up at one apiece. So after a very, very long, interesting battle of a mid-range, Shadows of Mortality, there it is, has just bodied the opponent for 15. What a random card that has seen zero play apart from this 2-month spot of standards.
That is very rude. So in Modern, I have played Calibrated Blast with Shadow of Mortality in it. So you flip cards until you hit a non-land and you deal damage to any target equal to its converted mana cost. So Calibrated Blast combined with Shadow of Mortality can deal 15 just straight off the bat, and then you try and figure out the last 5 between fetches and shocks and lightning bolts.
You get there in Modern, right? You get there the last 5.
But you hope so.
They've now balanced up at one apiece, just obviously for that very, very short secondary game. It was showing that JMF was 1-0 up, but it's been corrected now as play continues into the third game. Just another race to the end, essentially, is what I think we're going to be seeing here. That change of pace, that right perfectly timed go for the throat, Liliana of the Veil for both players, or that time where they can double spell. So I think like the 4-mana turn, like being able to play a creature and go for the throat, things like that is really going to come down to like who takes this one down, I believe. Or also, unfortunately for JMF's case, I'm now going down to 5.
Yeah, so it looks like, in the case of this matchup in particular, the Golgari Midrange deck is the better midrange deck. So when we're both doing mid-range things, we're both playing 2-drops into 3-drops into 2-2-drops with a removal spell sprinkled in there, the Golgari midrange deck is going to win a lot of the time just by virtue of having things like Sentinel and Mosswood Dread Knight and Frillback. But the Orzhov Bronco deck has the out of sometimes they just 15 you.
Yes. Which when you're in a board stall, like is great, right? Like that's sort of
that's the Paracaustic Bronco, right? It's Dark Confidant, but when you're attacking, so it provokes more aggressive gameplay, even more so than Dark Confidant did, because you want to constantly be attacking with it, because you want to constantly be getting triggers.
I love that little slide there. The sort of the moment one mana was acknowledged as being tapped, JMF just sort of started sliding the tenacious underdog to the bin. Preacher,
we've done that, and we've done that in Modern a couple of times, haven't we? Where you see a red source being tapped, and you're like, well, this is getting bolted.
Yeah, we have our regular Murtai player who, at the moment you fetch for red, they just put Ragavan in the bin. It's just like they know.
So Tom's got the mid-range draw here. He's got a threat that draws him cards and makes creatures backed up by removal. So this is the position Tom wants to be in.
Yeah, was like the keys to the game we talked about, right? You're now ahead. So with all that your opponent can now do, which is follow up with some small threats,
very small in this case.
Now this is potentially a bluff, but then also likely that fear for like, well, if you put down shouldered on here on turn 4, I need to remove it. So actually gets rid of the Preacher pre-combat, which was
so JMF playing nice and tight, waiting until the last possible moment to cast his instant speed spells. So in case Tom does do that slight little misstep of playing a Shieldred in main phase 1,
and there's the follow up.
This on a multiplier for JMF, it's not looking too hot for him. Another Steel Seraph up the top is pretty good though. Preacher's a 2/4 with Death Touch, not the best, but I guess it stops the 1/1.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on rate. Oh, kill an artifact enchantment. Oh, okay. And in all credit to Tom, this is like good sequencing, great game. Like Tom is a very proficient limited player, so Golgari Midrange like fits into like a limited player's MO, right? And there's the right spells, right timing. Not much more than JMF can do. I believe.
Another Steel Seraph is pretty good.
Yeah, they're actually still playing threats.
I was a go for the throat straight off the top there.
And
also a Virtue of Persistence.
Yeah, it's going to be the Virtue, I think, right? Because the -2. Yeah.
Because that, weirdly enough, the adventure on that is sorcery speed, which I have nearly missed a couple of times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Tom, as you said, playing correctly, leaving up the instant speed one, casting in the sorcery speed one.
Yeah, this is looking really, really good for Tom. We did mention Path of Peril, which, again, we've got 3 mana creatures on the field here, which dodges that. Getting some maps out. Gonna need a little bit of help here for JMF, otherwise we are going to be seeing Tom taking the path to victory, going 3-0 and facing off against Autumn for the standard Showdown prizing.
Yeah, I think JMF needs a Toxic Deluge or something. Yeah, didn't get it.
Oh, I double go.
2 more go for the throats just to say, this was over.
I got you, mate. I got you. So, congratulations to Tom. Obviously, we can reveal this was from a week or so ago. Tom did actually end up taking down the whole standard Showdown. Up on the screen now, we'll be popping it. A photo of the great night we had, courtesy of Wizards of the Coast. So thank you to them. Thank you to Autumn Bouchette. And there's you. And thank you to Josh Strive Hayes. All tagged down in the description. Go check out their channels, their content, their Twitter, because they came down and they supported this fantastic night. Any final words about the position of these decks in the meta and what you see happening, changing to them when rotation comes?
I mean, rotation's just going to blow standard in half, really, isn't it? As you said, there's some of these cards that we've been playing with for so long, we're not going to know what to do without them. When Boseju's not in the format anymore, we're all going to be lost because everyone's going to be playing 6-mana artifacts and we're just going to be dying to them. Pick your poisons now, people. Pick your poisons.
That's been a great one. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. If you were still here and you haven't liked or subscribed, it's about time you did. You can check us out on our Twitch channel. Check us out here. We'll be back with more content soon. Thanks for watching. See you later. Why's my mouse died?